One of the most distinguishing mechanics in Geometry Dash is the game's built-in level editor available for all to use. Where the Impossible game fell short, Geometry Dash succeeded by offering an alternative of ways to play new levels rather than being stuck playing the main RobTop levels. Over the years, the skill of creators who frequently use the editor have become much more refined, and we've gotten to see some amazing artwork being built entirely in this game. And over time, people have found ways to collaborate with other talented creators and build levels together. Whether it was exchanging account information to sharing GMD files between each other, creators have always found a way to make it work. A good majority of fully fleshed out levels you see nowadays are actually collabs, which goes to show how much of the ways of early mega collabs influenced the game in this day and age. Depending on the scale of the project, and due to the inevitable setbacks that come with working together with large groups of people, collabs can often extend anticipated deadlines set at the start and take much longer than once thought to. Some collabs take weeks, some take months, and some of them can even take over a year to finish. Crazy, right? Well, if you thought so, then you're probably not ready for today's topic. The level that we are going to be talking about today was highly anticipated for many years. This project met the likes of dozens of talented creators and experienced a plethora of changes to itself. Don't believe me? Here is a side-by-side of the level in its earliest stage versus the final product today. And don't even get me started on the amount of differences seen over time. If you haven't figured it out yet, the level that we are going to be taking a trip down memory lane with is one of the most visually and aesthetically pleasing top extreme demons we've ever had. And to this day, is still one of the hardest levels beaten in the game. After taking a staggering 6 years to finish being made, with its high intensity atmosphere mixed with an upbeat and positive vibe, while holding some of the most challenging raw gameplay, this is the History of Anathema. But we can't just dive straight into talking about Anathema itself, no. Anathema isn't just a standalone level. If you weren't aware, Anathema is actually the 4th installment in a sequence of levels called the Dedication series. And this all started with just one small up-and-coming creator, Nikrodox. The Dedication series first began back on March 26, 2016, with the release of the first level in the tetralogy. Looking at this level nowadays, it's crazy how this spawned from this. I mean, look at that gameplay, man, it's beautiful. I was trying to branch out into more styles of creating, and at the time, I was amazed by people like Galvatron, Sirpunch, and Funny Game for their ability to make effects. Specifically, Galvatron at the time was dabbling a lot in sinusoidal effects that created crazy illusions. Looking at some of Galvatron's work from the time, the elements of inspiration are definitely there. Prior to the verification video of Dedication, Nikrodox had actually uploaded a test video called Grayscale, where they showed off some of the designs that people like Galvatron were working with. Sadly, this remained as nothing more than a demo level, but the project was quickly recycled with some of its parts being present in their other levels, such as Red Roses and Dedication itself. The reason for the level series being centered around its iconic RGB color palette was partially an accident. Nikrodox actually had some experience with background design, so they already had a vision for what they wanted the color scheme to be, a primary color and a neutral color. Nikro couldn't settle on just a singular primary color, so they ended up just going with all of them, which would end up being the perfect outcome many years down the road. Nikrodox had been playing a lot of feature tab levels at this time, hence why the gameplay is extremely easier compared to what was to come. They noticed the UFO was not relatively present at the climax of many of these levels, and to stand out, Nikro did exactly that, a trend that would carry on. The choice of music played a huge role in the series as well. The living Tombstone has a very distinct style in his earlier songs, and it made it so you could very reliably split up the song into sections. At each section, I naturally like to switch up the game mode. And there we have it. Without realizing it, they just made the complete framework for the entire level series. From the decoration, the color palette, the gameplay choices, the music, everything. However, when talking about the backstory behind Dedication, Nikrodox noted that these rules became very fundamental to them, saying, "If it wasn't broken, I didn't fix it." It's important to keep a mental note of this because things changed quite a bit when we get to Anathema, and following these rules 100% of the time could not be the case anymore. Since Dedication essentially became the base for the rest of the series, Allegiance followed this with no problem. This time, we were met with a harder, better, greater variety of gameplay, and an improvement in decoration quality. The name was a vague synonym of the original dedication, but it was not thought hard on much back in the day. Allegiance first previewed on YouTube on April 22nd, 2016, and was finished and verified just 2 months later on June 14th. If you notice the dates in the video, Dedication and Allegiance were released no more than 3 months apart from one another, which goes to show the absolute scale the overall series found itself in later on. Though, regarding the gameplay, Allegiance was only intended on being an easy demon, which we can see nowadays did not come to fruition. This can be directly attributable to the fact that Nicrodox was becoming familiar with the community surrounding the demon list. And since the list seemingly had no levels using the UFO at the drop, they just decided to buff Allegiance to be list-worthy, where it would be verified by Arlol and placed at number 12 on the demon list on January 17th, 2017. As a surprise to Nicrodox, Allegiance was a huge success for them at the time, only inspiring them to create more. After Allegiance was verified, they actually did not intend to keep creating levels in the Dedication series. Allegiance was meant to be one and done, just a single sequel to Dedication. But after enough time passing, and a small update coming out, Nicrodox would move forward with creating the sequel to Allegiance, Renevant, 7 months later. While Renevant was being made, Nicro actually started developing the early layouts for Anathema simultaneously, marking the first instances of Anathema's existence on April 13th, 2017. Funnily enough, this caused quite some confusion among outside fans, since no one knew which level would be finished first. Not even Nicrodox. This means that in some alternate timeline, this is what we would have gotten instead. Because Renevant began production first, this was the deciding factor for Nicro to go all gas, no brakes on Renevant and finish it first. At this stage of my creating history, I was starting to feel some pretty intense imposter syndrome due to the success of Allegiance. This would only lead them to sink into a rut, trying to grasp for inspiration on Renevant. Posting previews of the level only made it worse, since Nicro was feeling outside pressure from the people patiently waiting for the third installment to be completed. They would end up taking a break from finishing Renevant for quite a while, and decorated the entirety of Hard Machine in the meantime. This would help a little bit in the short term, but they ended up just hating themselves for even starting Renevant in the first place. Alright, now's a good time to pause for a second. During these events of Renevant being semi in limbo, a semi-known player and victor of the top 1 Bloodlust by the name of Rory would reach out to Nicrodox at the time regarding Anathema, asking whether they could verify it. Nicro was hesitant at first, since they had a lineup of promising players at the time in hopes of getting one of them to accept the verification. But with Rory coming out of nowhere with a run of 76 to 100 on Anathema's early layout, this blew Nicrodox away and easily secured a spot as a standalone verifier. Why is this relevant, you may ask? You'll see in just a second. Picking up right where we left off with Renevant and its purgatory state, all of this disdain grew and grew within Nicrodox great enough that they eventually snapped and decorated the entire last 60% of Renevant in just 3 hours on around October 8th of 2017. And it shows if you look at the deco. So many copied and pasted structures, so many lazy decisions. I was just so mad that I wanted it done. With Renevant now completed, Nicrodox was now trying to figure out who would be the verifier among these options. Details here get a bit harder to track due to a lot of information being lost to time, but the level would be in possession by Noctifly and Flex, but finally would end up going to Aquiver, who got a run of 65% on the level in January of 2019. Somewhere along the line, at one point, the level would be passed on to Wuxi, verifier of Lucid Nightmares. In September of 2019, things seemed very promising with frequent and impressive updates regarding the verification with runs like 51% and 42 to 100. But on September 28th, 2019, Wuxi would reach out to a certain player asking if they'd be willing to be the backup verifier for Renevant, and that player would be none other than Rory. Yeah, fun fact, Rory was actually the verifier of Anathema before they were the official verifier for Renevant. Not long after Rory and Wuxi's talk about backup verifier, Wuxi's mental state came crashing down and ended up being too emotionally unstable to move forth with the verification of Renevant, thus landing into the hands of Rory, where they would verify it on November 10th of 2019.
I beat it! Yes!
Now, we are all caught up.
Let's go.
It was crucial that we covered as much as we did regarding the backstory on the Dedication series in order to get a full picture of the production way back when. But finally, here we are, with Anathema. Or at least in its early stages. Yeah, we are still a long way away from the final version. But here it is, just a little baby. During almost all of Renevant's building process, Anathema was just sitting in the background with a thick layer of dust over it. And basically all of the struggles Nicrodox had undergone with Renevant were just transferred over to Anathema. Remember how Allegiance was originally supposed to finalize the Dedication series all the way back in June of 2016? Well, now it's November of 2019, and the absurd amount of pressure to give the community one hell of a grand finale was just too much to bear. Dedication, Allegiance, and Renevant had all been solo projects, and with the addition of Nycro's confidence being the lowest it had ever been, trying to output a level on this scale felt nothing short of impossible. In addition to this astronomical burden, Nycro would often be offered help with the revival of the level, and outright refuse all of it. As time went on, people just gave up asking, and Anathema was eventually seen as a dead project. At one point, it was thought that this would just be lost to time and fade away into darkness, a failed top extreme. On screen right now is the last preview we would receive of Anathema for nearly 2 years. But don't worry, here is where things start to get interesting. During Anathema's hiatus, a lot would be brewing in the background regarding the level. Earlier, I mentioned that Rory was given the verification rights to Anathema, set to make it the hardest level in the game. But with Nycrodox being far from active on GD, and even getting their original Discord account banned around early 2020, Rory was not too keen on letting Anathema go out with a whimper. Since Anathema had so much momentum going for itself, Rory attempted to revive Anathema with the help of creator Jakob Nugget. On screen right now are 3 parts of Rory and Jakob's version of Anathema that were lost to time, each uploaded on July 20th, 2020, so this is right smack in the middle of Anathema's dead period. And you can immediately tell the difference comparing this decoration style to Nycrodox's signature style for the series. Just at face value, these parts feel too static and alienated to the charm of the dedication series. And sure, these are very outdated, but even for the time, these just didn't remain very faithful to the original. They may have been less than ideal, but in the grand scheme of things, Anathema was back. Not even knowing it at the time, Rory and Jakob were probably making the best decision possible by making an unauthorized version of Anathema. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this new version of Anathema was made without permission of Nycrodox, leading to the forthcoming events. Around the same time in 2020, talented creator It's Hybrid was becoming a wider known name in the community with uploads of their decorations from iconic upcoming levels and hosting impressive mega collabs. At the time, Nycrodox's Anathema, the official version, was still considered completely dead. Hybrid and their friend Antares decided to pull up one of the Anathema leaks uploaded online, and wanted to optimize it for fun and playability. It wasn't long after that Antares would recommend Hybrid should get in contact with Nycrodox to try and work together to get the level revived. The conversation probably went something along the lines of, "Dude, you host levels, why don't you try and bring this back?" It's now late 2020, and It's Hybrid had come to Nycrodox with the proposal of helping them finish off the level with a bang. Funny enough, since Nycro was still hardly playing the game, Hybrid actually had to do quite the amount of convincing. But in the end, the cherry on top to Hybrid's salesperson negotiation would be telling Nycrodox that there was an unofficial version being made, using the same gameplay, but an entirely different decoration style. Of course, they were not very thrilled with the idea of another group finishing off the series, and this would be the straw that broke the camel's back. By early 2021, It's Hybrid and Nycrodox have now officially revived Anathema, with Nycro co-hosting the level along with Hybrid. Soon after, a test demo of Xbox's part in Anathema would emerge, marking the first known preview of the new and improved project. Anathema was now back in full swing, with a whole new wave of passion overtaking the project. Progress would be made over time, and the level would receive its first update in nearly 2 years on Nycrodox's channel, with the final trailer and final preview both uploaded in a span of less than a week in early August of 2021. Here we can instantly see an improvement in quality of decoration, with the deco hardly resembling to that of Anathema's original preview, alongside staying true to the charm of the dedication series. The revival of Anathema would also cause Nycrodox to meet the group of TM Co., most well known for their levels like Unnamed 666, Scream Machine, Fairy Knife Hell, and Dead of Night over time. It was my first introduction to TM, as well as all the great and creative people within it. Working with Hybrid, Xbox, Iris, and especially Eterniswib was and is a blast. These guys are passionate, creative, and incredibly skillful at knowing what works and what doesn't. The last note would prove to be most crucial since, keep in mind, the dedication series started out as only consisting of solo levels, so it was only inevitable that Nycro would feel some sense of uncertainty when it came to the decoration process. Would they carry out Nycro's original vision? Are they going to end up being too experimental and screw up the original direction of the series? To their surprise, they were nothing short of visionaries. They were able to develop a new style for Anathema based on the old, outdated decoration that was already there, while staying true to the original style of the series. I have never been as happy with the project's result as I am with Anathema. They are also incredibly supportive, and are the single reason why I'm still playing Geometry Dash to this day. Without them, I wouldn't have had the confidence to have continued after Renevant. Period. Another major eye-catcher were the distinct visual improvements from 2019 Anathema to the new version. The old deco did not age well, and the level was terribly optimized. which was why it seemingly changed so much from old previews to new ones. The Anathema revival would remain in consistent development from this point onward. Quite a few of the parts went through a huge overhaul caused by the age of the level as stated before. I mean, just look at this side-by-side intro comparison. That is a crazy improvement. Xbox's second part also went through a lot of changes, with a much more updated version playing on the right. From a host standpoint, there were not really any major challenges that we faced. Only small disputes on some details here and there, but it mostly went smoothly. Since Necrodox had been taken under the wing by a team who had nothing but positive interactions with one another, it makes perfect sense that the group worked so well together. The date is now May 24th, 2023, 2 years after being picked up by TM, and under development for a total of 6 years now, dating back to its first ever appearance. After all these years of the community waiting, Nycro would tweet out, "Anathema decoration is done." This was it! The final stretch. Everyone was stoked to hear the wait was finally coming to an end, and by July 4th of that same year, Necrodox would upload the final showcase of Anathema. Upon the release of the final showcase, the team would be met with nothing but a wave of overwhelming support. Thousands upon thousands of people were watching Anathema in its final form, and had nothing but positive things to say about it. Although, the story of Anathema would not end here just yet, as the matter of finding a verifier would still be present. Thankfully, this was already taken care of. Back when Necrodox made their final tweet about Anathema getting finished, they would leave a reply underneath it with the words, "PS, Rory is the verifier." This is such a nice gesture to stay true to the series, with Necrodox keeping their word and allowing for Rory to be the verifier over 4 years after their first contact with each other. And the community was very much in support of this decision. Side note, I think it's really cool Necrodox still wanted Rory to be the verifier of Anathema, despite the troubles of the unofficial version that were being made. Quite the nice gesture if you ask me. Fortunately, progress would be made public very soon after the showcase. Nycro would upload a clip of Rory doing 53 to 77 on the level on August 30th. But what stood out about this clip was not the run itself, but the caption stating the level was now buffed to be harder than Acheron, the game's hardest level at the time. Even after all these years later, Anathema still stayed true to its goal of being the top one. Kind of crazy how enough time had passed that Anathema had to go from being just harder than Bloodlust to now harder than Acheron. This was a massive boost of hype for the level, and things seem to be going great. But those of you watching at home who are already familiar with Anathema, this would not last forever. Rory would slowly back off from Twitter over time, and just as suddenly as it started, they would stop uploading progress online as well. To be honest, I just wasn't expecting the level to take as long as it did to be finished. When I got it back in 2019, I was in middle school, and had all the time in the world. I eventually stopped playing Geometry Dash in late 2020, yet I still held out some fringe hope that Anathema would someday be finished and I would be able to come back and do it. Unfortunately, by the time the level was finished and ready to be verified, I was going into college and was just in a much different phase of my life than I thought I would be when I got the verification. Life simply just caught up to them too fast, and the overall delays on the level would come back to haunt not only Rory, but Necrodox too. Rory was the verifier of Renevant, and it felt almost symbolic to have Rory finish off the dedication series once and for all. But this just wouldn't end up being the case, sadly. The level appeared to be in a state of limbo for a period of time. If you haven't noticed already based on the dates, the release of 2.2 would also attribute to the level getting set back months, with the team fixing everything due to the new in-game physics. With no updates from Rory or Necrodox, Anathema went on the back burner of community hype regarding top extreme demons. Surprisingly, Rory would upload a new final Anathema progress all the way on April 6, 2024, just short of a year later from their first progress clips. The run was not anything groundbreaking, but just a simple update on progress for the level. In the title though, Anathema was now labeled as only being top 10 worthy, since so much time had passed that Acheron had now fallen to number 3 on the list. This wasn't too big of a deal though, as it was still projected to be one of the hardest levels in the game when released. But as we discussed previously, Rory didn't have the time to finish it off. The team was now stunted with the task of finding a new verifier, someone who could be guaranteed to verify the level in a reasonable amount of time, while also ensuring that Anathema would still be pretty difficult. Decisions. Enter WizKid, an underdog, up-and-coming top player, fresh off of some very impressive achievements on the demon list. Ignoring their unconventional skill sets that were seen as nothing but bizarre at the time, WizKid would prove time and time again that they always had the motivation to complete the hardest levels the game has to offer. And by June 21st, 2 months after the last public progress of Anathema, and nearly a year after its final showcase, WizKid would be announced as the new verifier for Anathema. Starting off with a bang, they would upload a crazy run of 41% and 58 to 100. nearly getting the level in 2 runs on their first progress video. I think one of the coolest things about WizKid is the sheer amount of grit they have for this game. Mind you, WizKid is verifying an upcoming top 5 to 10 level, their soon to be hardest, and still manages to beat the top 1 platformer at the time on the side. I don't even know what to say to that than to just be impressed. Absolute wizard of this game. Progress would continue on smoothly and at a much more rapid rate than we saw in the past. We got 65%, then a 70%, and then an 80%, and then, oh my god, 95%. Guys, it's happening. We are in the end game after all these years. Nah, just kidding. WizKid didn't drop it. That would suck if they did though. They just ended up wanting to take a break from the level due to their enjoyment ratings reaching a new low, and overall just wanted a quick refresher playing some other stuff. So, as a sensible option, WizKid beat Firework. Yeah, Firework. As a break, I'm telling you man, these top players are actually just unstoppable. With this Firework completion followed by an extended list plus a main list verification, Anathema was back in full swing again. I'm sure we've all been here before. Dying that far into a level hurts bad, and we can't even imagine how much it hurts to die so late into one of the next hardest levels in the game and straight up making history in the progress. But this is WizKid we're talking about here, and WizKid doesn't give up. And on the fateful day of November 19th, 2024, 5 months after WizKid picked it up, 16 months after its final showcase, and 91 months since its first ever appearance online, WizKid would do the unthinkable after 82,000 attempts and gut-wrenching deaths at the ending. WizKid would verify it.
I've been trying for so long to sing you the right song, to show you something different every day.
The level would be rated and initially placed at number 6 on the demon list, and later on moved up to be the 3rd hardest level in the game. Today, Anathema has 15 victors and many, many more to come. I think it's unlikely I'll ever beat it. I haven't played the game for more than a few hours in more than 5 years. And now that I'm in my 20s, it's just hard to imagine having the time and especially the motivation to do it. I will say, if I ever do come back to beat one last level, it would probably be Anathema. If I were to go back and change anything, the only thing I'd change is my part. I'm not big on it, and I've obviously improved a lot since then, even before the level came out. But it is what it is. It was one of the most fun experiences I've had making a level. It was one of my favorite upcoming levels when it was previewed for the very first time all those years ago, and I'm extremely happy to be a part of it. In the end, I wouldn't have changed anything. The Dedication series has exposed me to thousands of amazing people. Creators, top players, influencers, people with stories of how my worthless work impacted them. The entire purpose of the series was to dedicate my time and effort to those who had inspired, helped, ridiculed, critiqued, and dedicated their time to me or my work, and as a result, I am humbled to say that Anathema has more than 300 names in it. People who have helped me along the way, people who have inspired me, even some people who have hurt me are in that list. That list is a rough culmination of 9 years of interactions and work, and so I would not have changed a single thing. Every name in that list tells a story, and so I hope that along the way, I and everyone who helped me were able to inspire others in the same way that Galvatron, Jazor, Serpunj, and Kermal inspired me. A big thank you to everyone who made it to the end of the video. This is without a doubt one of my most challenging videos I've ever made. This idea was conceived all the way back in January of this year, and I am so happy to have finally turned this idea into a real video. So an astronomically big thank you to It's Hybrid, Rory, WizKid, and Nicrodox for helping me bring this project to life. And a special thank you to Nicrodox for pretty much helping me write this whole script. I really could not have done this without them, seriously. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten you guys. Without your support, these videos would not be possible. So thank you to everyone who watches at home, and a special thanks to our awesome channel members and Discord server boosters. You guys rock as always. Anathema has always been one of my favorite top levels when it was in its building phase, right up to its verification. So it's pretty neat I was given the opportunity to make this a real video after 9 months. Before you go, I'm really hoping we can cross 30,000 subs by the end of the year, and with your help, I know we can crush that. I hope everyone enjoyed this wild ride of a video, and as always, thanks for watching and take care. I'll see you next time.